The restaurant fell silent the moment Victoria Kane collapsed. Not because a billionaire CEO had just hit the marble floor, but because the man who caught her wasn't security, wasn't staff, wasn't anyone who mattered. He was just Ethan Brooks, the tired father in the worn jacket everyone had been whispering about all evening. And when her son screamed when her billion-dollar empire held its breath, when her assistant froze with a phone in hand, it was Ethan who moved. His hand steady, his voice calm, his eyes seeing what no one else could, that beneath the designer suit and flawless reputation was just a terrified mother who'd been holding her breath for far too long. If you want to see how a single dinner can shatter every assumption about worth, power, and what truly saves us when everything falls apart, stay with me until the very end. And if this story reaches you, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far the truth can travel. The reservation at Luminaire had been made 3 months in advance. Victoria Kane didn't make reservations. Her assistant did. But she knew the weight they carried. A table by the window. Privacy without isolation. The kind of positioning that said success without saying anything at all. She adjusted the collar of her charcoal Tom Ford blazer as the valet opened her door. The evening air was cool, expensive, carrying the scent of jasmine from planners that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Behind her, the second door opened, and Noah stepped out. Her son, 7 years old, silent as always. "Noah." Her voice was firm but not unkind. "Stay close." He nodded. He always nodded. He never spoke unless forced to, and even then the words came out flat, rehearsed, like lines from a script he hadn't chosen. Therapists had names for it: selective mutism, emotional withdrawal, trauma response. Victoria had files full of diagnoses and not a single solution that worked. She took his hand. It was small, cold, and didn't squeeze back. The hostess recognized her immediately. Of course she did. Victoria Kane's face had been on the cover of Forbes twice in the last 18 months. The business world called her the Ice Queen, the architect, the woman who rebuilt Kane Industries from scandal into dominance. What they didn't know, what they didn't need to know, was that every night she came home to a silent apartment and a child who looked at her like she was part of the furniture. "Miss Kane, welcome. Your table is ready." They were led through the restaurant, past tables where conversations paused, where eyes followed, where phones tilted just slightly to capture her presence. Victoria had learned to ignore it. Noah had learned to disappear. Their table was perfect, positioned, isolated, safe. "Your server will be with you shortly." Victoria ordered sparkling water for herself, plain water for Noah. She didn't bother with the menu. She always ordered the same thing. Control tasted better than variety. Noah sat across from her, his eyes fixed on the white tablecloth. His small hands rested in his lap. He looked like a portrait of a child, not an actual child. Perfect posture, perfect stillness, perfectly, heartbreakingly empty. "How was school today?" Victoria asked, knowing the answer. "Fine." "Did you finish your math assignment?" "Yes." "And music class?" "Yes." She didn't ask if he enjoyed it. She'd stopped asking questions that required feelings 2 years ago. The restaurant hummed around them, laughter from a corner booth, the clink of wine glasses, a low conversation about mergers and market projections from a nearby table. This was her world, efficient, predictable, profitable. And then the door opened. Victoria didn't look up immediately. She was scanning her phone, reviewing an email from her CFO about quarterly projections. But Noah's head turned. Slowly, deliberately. For the first time all evening, something had caught his attention. She followed his gaze. A man had entered with a little girl. The hostess was gesturing toward a table near the window, not far from theirs. The man looked tired, not exhausted in the polished, overworked executive way. Tired in the way that came from carrying weight no one else could see. He wore dark jeans and a jacket that had seen better years. His shoes were clean but worn. His hair needed a trim. The little girl, though, she was radiant. Maybe 6 years old, with wild curls pulled into an uneven ponytail and a dress that looked homemade. She was bouncing on her toes, chattering nonstop, her small hand gripping her father's with absolute trust. "Daddy, can I get dessert first, just this once, please?" Mia, we talked about this. His voice was gentle, patient. Dinner first. But it's my birthday. Which is exactly why we're here, and you'll get dessert, I promise. The hostess led them to their table. As they passed, Mia's eyes locked on Noah. She smiled, a wide, gap-toothed grin full of unfiltered joy. Hi, she said brightly. Noah didn't respond, but his eyes followed her all the way to her seat. Victoria watched her son, really watched him. And for the first time in months, she saw something flicker across his face, not quite a smile, not even close, but something. Interest, curiosity, a crack in the wall. The man, Ethan, she would later learn, was helping Mia into her chair, tucking a napkin into her lap, brushing a curl from her forehead. The care was automatic, unconscious. The kind of attention that didn't come from duty, but from love so deep it didn't need to announce itself. Mia was still talking. Daddy, did you see that boy? He looks sad. Do you think he wants to be friends? Mia, we don't bother people when they're eating. I'm not bothering. I'm just wondering. Ethan smiled. It was small, tired, but real. Eat your bread, sweetheart. Victoria looked down at her phone. She had 3 emails waiting. A board meeting tomorrow at 8. A merger negotiation that needed her attention. But when she glanced up again, Noah was still watching them. Noah. Her voice was quieter than she intended. Do you want to say hello? He looked at her, really looked at her, and then, in the smallest voice, he whispered, Can I? Something in Victoria's chest tightened. She set her phone down, folded her hands. This was not protocol. This was not the plan. But her son, her silent, unreachable son, had just asked her for something. Yes, she said. You can. Noah slid out of his chair, slowly, hesitantly. Victoria stood with him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. They crossed the short distance between tables. She felt the weight of eyes turning toward them. Whispers starting, phones lifting. Victoria Kane, approaching a stranger's table. Unscheduled, unplanned. Ethan looked up as they approached. His expression was cautious but polite. Mia's face lit up like someone had just handed her the world. Hi, Mia said again, even brighter this time. Victoria spoke before Noah could freeze. I apologize for the intrusion. My son noticed your daughter and wanted to say hello. Ethan's eyes moved between Victoria and Noah. There was no recognition in his gaze. He didn't know who she was. That alone was startling. It's no intrusion, Ethan said quietly. He looked at Noah. Hey there. Noah's lips parted. No sound came out. Mia didn't wait. I'm Mia. It's my birthday. I'm 6 now, but I was 5 this morning. Do you like cake? I love cake. My daddy made me one shaped like a dinosaur because dinosaurs are the best. What's your name? Noah looked up at Victoria. She nodded. Noah, he whispered. Mia's grin widened. That's a cool name. Do you want to sit with us? We have extra room. Ethan's eyes flicked to Victoria. There was no presumption in his gaze, no expectation, just a quiet question. Victoria Kane did not make impulsive decisions. She built empires on calculated risk and ironclad certainty. But when she looked at her son, at the way his small hand had reached out just slightly toward the edge of Mia's table, she heard herself say, If it's not an imposition, it's not, Ethan said simply. And just like that, the evening shifted. They moved their things. A server appeared, confused but professional, rearranging place settings. Noah sat next to Mia. Victoria sat across from Ethan. The contrast was immediate and uncomfortable. Her blazer cost $4,000. His jacket was frayed at the cuffs. Her watch was Swiss. His was digital, scratched. Her presence commanded rooms. His presence asked for nothing. Mia didn't notice. She was already talking to Noah about dinosaurs, about her favorite colors, about the fact that she could do a cartwheel but only on grass because concrete hurt her hands. Noah didn't respond with words, but he was listening, truly listening. His eyes tracked her every gesture. His mouth twitched once, almost a smile. Ethan was watching too, but not Mia. He was watching Noah. And in his gaze, Victoria saw something she hadn't expected. Understanding, not pity, not curiosity. Understanding. Your son, Ethan said quietly, his voice low enough that only she could hear. He doesn't talk much, does he? Victoria stiffened. He's selective. I didn't mean it as judgment. Ethan's tone was calm, steady. My daughter talks enough for 3 kids. It balances out. There was no criticism in his words, no probe, just observation. Victoria found herself answering. He hasn't spoken more than a few words at a time in 2 years. Ethan nodded. He didn't offer solutions, didn't suggest therapies, didn't do any of the things people usually did when confronted with Noah's silence. He just said, "That must be hard." It was such a simple statement. But it landed with unexpected weight. Yes, Victoria admitted. It is. Mia had convinced Noah to help her color on the back of a kid's menu the server had brought over. She was explaining in elaborate detail why purple was the best color for a T-Rex. Noah had picked up a crayon. He was coloring, slowly, carefully. Victoria couldn't remember the last time she'd seen him hold a crayon. How long have you been in the city? Ethan asked, clearly trying to keep the conversation neutral. All my life, Victoria said. You? 3 years. Moved here after... He paused. Something flickered across his face. After some changes. He didn't elaborate. Victoria didn't press. She recognized the look of someone guarding a wound. The server arrived. They ordered. Mia requested chicken fingers, but only if they're shaped like dinosaurs, which they weren't, but the server promised to check with the kitchen anyway. Noah ordered the same thing Mia did, quietly, but he ordered. Victoria ordered her usual. Ethan ordered the cheapest entree on the menu. As the server left, Victoria noticed something. The tables around them had gone quieter. Conversations had shifted. Eyes were lingering. She knew what they were thinking. Victoria Kane, billionaire, CEO, sitting with some nobody in a worn jacket and his overly enthusiastic child. She could hear the mental captions already. Charity case, PR stunt, midlife crisis. Ethan noticed too. His jaw tightened slightly. He didn't look around, but his shoulders squared just a fraction. Defense without confrontation. Mia, oblivious, was still narrating her crayon masterpiece. And this is the volcano, and it's about to explode, but the dinosaurs are friends, so they're going to work together to... Mia! Ethan's voice was still gentle, but there was a thread of something beneath it. Protection. Inside voice, sweetheart. I am using my inside voice. A little smaller. She dropped her volume exactly 1 notch. Better? Perfect. Noah laughed. It was so quiet, Victoria almost missed it. But it was there. A soft exhale of sound that wasn't quite a giggle but was closer than anything she'd heard in months. Her heart stopped. Ethan had heard it too. His eyes met hers across the table. He didn't say anything, didn't make a scene, just gave her the smallest nod. I see it. The food arrived. Mia's chicken fingers were, tragically, not dinosaur-shaped, but she forgave the restaurant with surprising grace. Noah ate 3 of his. 3. Victoria had to fight the urge to call his nutritionist immediately. Conversation drifted. Ethan asked Noah if he liked school. Noah shook his head. Ethan asked if he liked robots. Noah nodded. Mia announced that robots were cool, but dinosaurs were cooler, which sparked a very one-sided debate that Noah seemed content to observe. Victoria found herself relaxing, just slightly. The tension in her shoulders eased. She wasn't checking her phone, wasn't planning her next move. She was just here. And then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Her assistant. Marked urgent. She frowned. Opened the message. Board meeting moved to tonight. Emergency session. Wilson called the vote. You need to be there in 30 minutes. Her blood went cold. David Wilson, her CFO. The man she'd trusted to manage the financial infrastructure of Kane Industries while she focused on expansion. He'd called an emergency board meeting. Without her. That wasn't protocol. That was a coup. She stood abruptly. The table jolted slightly. Mia's crayon rolled onto the floor. I have to go, Victoria said, her voice tight. Noah, we're leaving. Noah's face fell. The small spark of life that had been building all evening vanished. Now, Noah. Ethan was already standing, stepping back to give them space. Of course, We understand. But Mia didn't understand. Wait, we didn't get cake yet. Noah didn't even get to see my birthday candles. Mia, let them go, Ethan said gently. But, Mia. She went quiet. Her lip trembled. Noah was staring at the table. His hands were in his lap again. Folded. Still. Empty. Victoria felt something twist in her chest. Guilt. Frustration. The ever-present weight of being pulled in two directions and never enough for either. I'm sorry, she said, and she wasn't sure who she was apologizing to. She took Noah's hand. It was cold again. They were halfway to the door when she heard Mia's voice, small and confused. Daddy, why did they have to leave? Did I do something wrong? No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong. Victoria didn't look back. She couldn't. The valet brought her car. She buckled Noah into the back seat. He stared out the window, silent as stone. She slid into the driver's seat and gripped the steering wheel. 30 minutes. She had 30 minutes to get to the office and stop whatever Wilson was planning. But as she pulled into traffic, her eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Noah was still staring out the window, not at the city, not at the lights, at nothing. She'd just taken away the first moment of joy he'd felt in months. For a board meeting. Victoria's hands tightened on the wheel. She drove faster. The Kane Industries building was lit up like a beacon. 47 floors of glass and steel, crowned with her name in letters that could be seen from across the river. Victoria's heels echoed across the marble lobby. Security nodded her through. The elevator climbed silently. Noah stood beside her, small and silent. You'll wait in my office, she told him. There are books, tablets. I won't be long. He didn't respond. The elevator doors opened on the executive floor. Her assistant, Claire, was waiting. They're already inside, Claire said, her voice low and urgent. Wilson has the votes. He's moving to suspend your decision-making authority pending a financial review. Victoria's jaw tightened. On what grounds? He's calling it fiduciary responsibility. Says your recent acquisitions were reckless, that you're over-leveraged. That's insane. Every acquisition was vetted, approved. He has Brennan and Kostova on his side. If he gets one more vote, he won't. Victoria strode past her, Noah trailing behind. She unlocked her office, flipped on the lights. It was pristine, controlled, cold. Stay here, she told Noah. I'll be back soon. She turned toward the boardroom. Mom. Victoria froze. Noah was looking at her. Actually looking at her. What is it? His voice was so small. Are you scared? The question hit her like a punch. She wanted to lie. To say no. To be the unshakable CEO, the woman who never flinched. But her son was looking at her with eyes that had seen too much silence, too much distance. Yes, she said quietly. I am. He nodded. As if that made sense, as if her honesty was the first real thing she'd given him in years. Then he sat down in her chair, pulled a book from the shelf, and opened it. Victoria walked into the boardroom. 12 faces turned toward her, some guilty, some defiant. Wilson sat at the far end of the table, his expression carefully neutral. Victoria, he said smoothly, glad you could join us. Cut the performance, David. What's this about? Fiduciary oversight. We have concerns, legitimate concerns, about the direction of the company. You have concerns, Victoria said coldly, or you have ambition. Silence. She could see it now. The alliances, the whispers, the careful positioning. This wasn't about Kai Wu Shun Cha. This was about power, and she was outnumbered. The meeting dragged on, 2 hours of carefully worded attacks, of financial projections twisted just enough to look alarming, of votes that stripped her authority piece by piece. She fought, hard. But the numbers didn't lie. Wilson had won. When it was over, Victoria walked back to her office. Her hands were steady, her face was composed, but inside she was screaming. Noah was still in her chair, the book open on his lap. He looked up as she entered. Are you okay? He asked. It was the longest sentence he'd spoken in 2 years. Victoria sat down on the edge of her desk. She didn't trust herself to stand anymore. "No," she said. "I'm not." Noah closed the book. He slid off the chair. And then, without a word, he walked over and took her hand. His small fingers squeezed. Just once. Victoria looked down at him, at her son, at the only thing in her life that mattered more than the empire she'd just lost control of. And she realized something. She'd spent years trying to protect him from pain. But tonight, in a restaurant she'd left too quickly, he'd found something she couldn't give him. Joy. And it hadn't come from her world. It had come from a tired man in a worn jacket and a little girl who loved dinosaurs. She thought of Ethan, of the way he'd moved through the evening with quiet care, of the way Mia had filled the air with laughter and pulled Noah out of his silence without even trying. She thought of the way Ethan had looked at her when Noah laughed. "I see it." Victoria stood. She took Noah's hand. "Come on," she said. "We're going back." "To the restaurant?" "Yes." "Why?" Victoria looked at her son, at the question in his eyes. "Because," she said quietly, "I made a mistake." They took the elevator down. The city was dark now, the streets quieter. Victoria drove back to Luminaire, her heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with board meetings or hostile takeovers. When they walked through the door, the hostess looked startled. "Miss Kane, are they still here?" Victoria asked. "The man and the little girl, the table by the window." The hostess hesitated. "They left about 20 minutes ago." Victoria's chest tightened. "Did they say where they were going?" "No, I'm sorry." Victoria stood there in the middle of the restaurant, her son's hand in hers. She'd come back. But she was too late. Noah looked up at her. "We can find them tomorrow, right?" Victoria looked down at him, at the hope in his eyes. "Yes," she said. "We will." She didn't know how. But for the first time in years, she knew what mattered. And it wasn't the boardroom. The drive home was silent, but it was a different kind of silence than before. Noah sat in the back seat, his face pressed against the window, watching the city lights blur past. Victoria gripped the steering wheel, her mind racing through possibilities she'd never had to consider before. How did you find someone in a city of 8 million people when you didn't even know their last name? When they reached the penthouse, Noah went straight to his room without being asked. Victoria stood in the center of her living room, 1,500 square feet of minimalist design and carefully curated art, and felt completely lost. Her phone buzzed. "Claire, Wilson is calling a press conference tomorrow at noon. Damage control?" Victoria stared at the message. 48 hours ago, this would have consumed her. She would have been on the phone with her legal team, crafting statements, preparing counterattacks. Instead, she typed back, "Handle it. I have something more important to deal with." She set the phone down and walked to Noah's room. The door was cracked open. He was sitting on his bed, still fully dressed, staring at nothing. "Noah." He looked up. "Tomorrow," Victoria said. "We're going to find them." "How?" It was a fair question. She didn't have an answer yet. "I don't know," she admitted, "but we will." Noah nodded slowly. Then, in that small voice that broke her heart every time she heard it, he asked, "Do you think Mia had a good birthday?" Victoria sat down on the edge of his bed. "I think she did. She seemed happy." She was really happy. Noah's fingers twisted in the comforter. She wasn't pretending. The observation cut deep, because Victoria knew what he meant. She knew he'd spent years watching people perform happiness around him, therapists, teachers, even her, while he felt nothing. But Mia's joy had been real, uncomplicated, genuine. "No," Victoria said softly. She wasn't pretending. Noah lay down, still in his clothes. Victoria pulled the blanket over him, something she hadn't done in months. He'd been insisting on independence, on doing everything himself. But tonight, he let her. "Mom?" "Yes?" "That man, Mia's dad, he was nice." "He was." "He didn't care that I didn't talk." Victoria's throat tightened. "No, he didn't." "Why not?" She didn't know how to answer that, because in her world everything was transactional. Silence was weakness. Vulnerability was liability. But Ethan hadn't looked at Noah and seen a problem to fix. He'd just seen a kid. Because some people, Victoria said carefully, understand that words aren't the only way to matter. Noah's eyes were already closing. I want to see them again. We will. I promise. She waited until his breathing evened out, then stood and walked back to the living room. Her laptop was on the coffee table. She opened it, pulled up a blank search screen, and stared at it. What did she actually know? Ethan. First name only. A daughter named Mia, who just turned 6. They'd been in the city for 3 years. He'd ordered the cheapest thing on the menu. His jacket was worn but clean. He'd moved here after some changes. It wasn't much. But Victoria Kane hadn't built an empire by accepting defeat. She started searching. Social media first. She typed Ethan and Mia into every platform she could think of. Thousands of results. None of them right. She tried the restaurant, called Luminaire directly. This is Victoria Kane. I was there earlier this evening. There was another party, a father and daughter. I need to get in touch with them. The manager was apologetic but firm. I'm sorry, Ms. Kane, we can't give out customer information. I'm not asking for personal details, just did they pay with a card, a name on a receipt? Even if they did, I couldn't share that. Privacy policy. Victoria hung up. She wasn't used to being told no. She tried a different approach. Called her head of security. Marcus, I need you to pull surveillance footage from Luminaire restaurant tonight between 7 and 9 p.m. There was a pause. Ms. Kane, that's not exactly legal? I know. Do it anyway. It'll take some time. I don't care. Get it done. She ended the call and leaned back against the couch. Her heart was pounding. This was insane. She was using corporate resources to track down a stranger because her son had smiled for the first time in 2 years. No, not insane, necessary. Her phone rang. Unknown number, she answered. Miss Kane? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. This is Rebecca Marsh from the Financial Times. I'd like to ask you a few questions about tonight's board meeting. Victoria's stomach dropped. How did you... We have sources. Can you comment on the allegations that you've been financially reckless with company assets? No comment. There are rumors that you've lost majority support, that Wilson is positioning himself as interim CEO. Can you confirm? Victoria's jaw tightened. This conversation is over. She hung up. Immediately her phone buzzed again. A text from Claire. Press got wind of the meeting. Wilson leaked. They're running the story in the morning. Of course he did. Victoria closed her eyes. Tomorrow, her professional reputation would be shredded across every business publication in the country. Her authority questioned, her competence doubted. And all she could think about was a little girl in a homemade dress asking if Noah wanted to be friends. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat at her desk and made lists. Possible places Ethan might work, schools Mia might attend, parks they might visit. It was a long shot, bordering on obsessive, but she had nothing else. By the time the sun rose, she had a plan. Noah found her in the kitchen at 7 a.m., still wearing yesterday's clothes, 3 empty coffee cups on the counter. Did you sleep? He asked. Not much. She handed him a glass of orange juice. But I have an idea. What kind of idea? We're going back to the restaurant. We'll ask everyone who was working last night if they remember anything. Then we'll check nearby parks, schools, anywhere a father and daughter might go on a weekend. Noah's eyes widened. Really? Really? For the first time in as long as she could remember, she saw hope on his face. They got dressed. Victoria traded her blazer for a simple sweater and jeans, something she never wore in public. Noah put on his favorite sneakers, the ones with the lights that he usually refused because they drew attention. They were walking out the door when her phone rang. Marcus. I got the footage, he said, but you're not going to like it. Why not? They paid cash, no credit card, no name, and they left through the side exit, no clear shot of their faces on the street cameras. Victoria's heart sank. Nothing? I got a partial license plate from a car parked near the exit. Might be theirs, might not be. Running it now. Send me everything you have. Ms. Kane, if I can offer some advice, you can't. She hung up, looked at Noah. We're still going, she said.
They drove back to Luminaire. In daylight, it looked different, smaller, less intimidating, the kind of place that thrived on evening ambiance and reputation. Victoria walked inside. The lunch shift was just starting. A different hostess was at the stand. "We're not open for lunch until 11:30. Oh, Ms. Kane." Recognition flickered across her face, followed by uncertainty. "How can I help you?" "I need to speak to anyone who worked last night. Servers, busboys, anyone who might have noticed a man and a little girl, table near the window." The hostess hesitated. "I can get the manager, please."
5 minutes later, Victoria was sitting in a back office with the day manager, a woman named Sophie, who looked simultaneously starstruck and confused. "You're looking for a customer?" Sophie asked carefully. "A father and daughter. They were here last night around the same time I was. The girl's name is Mia. It was her birthday." Sophie's expression shifted. "Oh, yeah, I remember them. Angela was their server. Sweet kid. Talked non-stop about dinosaurs." Victoria leaned forward. "Do you have any information about them? A phone number, an email, anything?" "They paid cash, didn't leave any contact information." Sophie paused. "But Angela might remember something. She's working tonight. You could come back. Can you call her?" "Miss Kane, I'm not sure. Please." Victoria's voice cracked slightly. "It's important." Something in her tone must have registered. Sophie picked up her phone. 10 minutes later, Victoria was on the phone with Angela, a college student who sounded nervous, talking to someone she'd clearly recognized from the news. "The guy with the little girl?" Angela said. "Yeah, I remember. He was really sweet. Tipped 25% even though his bill was tiny. The girl was adorable." "Did he mention anything? Where they lived, where she goes to school, anything?" The girl said something about a park. She wanted to go there after dinner to see the ducks. Her dad said it was too late, that they'd go tomorrow instead, Saturday." Victoria's pulse quickened. "Which park?" "She didn't say. Just the park with the ducks. I figured it was one nearby." It wasn't much, but it was something. "Thank you," Victoria said. "You've been very helpful." She hung up, looked at Noah. "What parks have ducks?" Noah asked. Victoria pulled out her phone, started searching. There were dozens of parks in the city, at least 15 with ponds. "This could take all day." "Then it takes all day," she said out loud. They started with the closest one, Riverside Park. It was beautiful, tree-lined paths, open green spaces, a pond in the center where ducks and geese clustered near a small dock. It was also crowded, families everywhere, kids on bikes, couples walking dogs, elderly people feeding birds. Victoria and Noah walked the perimeter slowly. Victoria scanned every face, every cluster of people. Noah stayed close, his hand in hers. "Do you see them?" he asked quietly. "Not yet." They circled the pond 3 times. Nothing. They tried the next park, then the next. By noon, they'd been to 5 different locations. Victoria's feet hurt. She wasn't used to walking this much. And Noah was getting tired. "Can we rest?" he asked. They sat on a bench overlooking a small playground. Kids were everywhere, shrieking with laughter, chasing each other, climbing on equipment that looked vaguely dangerous. Victoria watched them. She'd never brought Noah to a place like this. Too chaotic, too unpredictable, too many variables she couldn't control. "Mom?" "Yeah?" "What if we don't find them?" The question hung in the air between them. "We will," Victoria said, but her voice lacked conviction. "But what if we don't?" She looked at her son, at the worry creasing his small forehead. "Then we keep looking," she said, "for as long as it takes." Noah nodded. He didn't look reassured. They were about to leave when Victoria's phone buzzed. Marcus. "I got a hit on the license plate," he said. "Registered to an Ethan Brooks. Address is in Queens." Victoria's breath caught. "Send it to me." "Already done." "But Ms. Kane..." "What?" "Just be careful. Showing up at someone's home unannounced can be..." "I know what it can be. Thank you, Marcus." She pulled up the address. It was 40 minutes away, a neighborhood she'd never been to, probably never would have visited under any other circumstances. We found him, she told Noah. His face transformed. Really? Really? They got back in the car. Victoria's hands were shaking slightly as she entered the address into her GPS. This was crazy. She was tracking down a stranger based on a single dinner conversation because her son had laughed. But when she glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Noah's face, actually animated, actually hopeful, she knew she'd drive to the other side of the country if that's what it took. The neighborhood was modest, row houses with small front yards, older cars parked on the street, corner stores with hand-painted signs. Not run down, but lived in. Real. Victoria found the address, a narrow brick house with a small porch and flower boxes in the windows. There was a bike on the lawn, small, with training wheels. She parked across the street, sat there for a moment. Are we going in? Noah asked. Yes, we are. They walked up to the front door. Victoria raised her hand to knock, then hesitated. What was she even going to say? Hi, you don't know me, but my son smiled when he met your daughter, and I've spent the last 18 hours tracking you down because I'm desperate and terrified, and I don't know how else to help him. She knocked. Footsteps inside. The door opened. Ethan stood there, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, a dish towel over his shoulder. His expression went from polite curiosity to complete shock in about 2 seconds. Ms. Kane? Victoria, she said automatically. And yes, I'm sorry to just show up like this. She gestured to Noah. We wanted to see you again. Ethan's eyes moved from her to Noah. Understanding flickered across his face, followed by something else. Concern. Is everything okay? Yes. No, I don't know. Victoria realized she was rambling. Can we come in, please? Ethan stepped back. Of course. The inside of his home was small but warm. Mismatched furniture, photos on the walls, kids' drawings held to the refrigerator with magnets. It smelled like coffee and something baking. Mia appeared from the kitchen, flour on her nose. Daddy, I think the cookies are... She stopped dead when she saw Noah. Noah! She launched herself at him, like they were old friends who'd been apart for years instead of strangers who'd met once. Noah actually hugged her back. Victoria felt her throat tighten. We're making cookies, Mia announced. Do you want to help? Noah looked at Victoria. She nodded. Okay, he said quietly. Mia grabbed his hand and dragged him toward the kitchen. Come on, you can do the sprinkles. And just like that, they were gone. Victoria stood in the living room with Ethan. The silence stretched between them. I'm sorry, she said finally. This is incredibly inappropriate. Showing up at your home without calling, without asking. How did you find me? Ethan asked. His tone wasn't accusatory, just curious. Victoria felt heat rise in her face. I used security footage from the restaurant to get your license plate, then had my head of security run it through the DMV database. Ethan's eyebrows rose. That's thorough. It's invasive. I know. Victoria stopped. Started again. Last night, in the restaurant, my son laughed. Actually laughed. And I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd heard that sound. And then I left. I had an emergency at work, and I just left. And I saw his face when we walked away, and Her voice broke. She never broke. But standing in this stranger's living room, the weight of the last 2 years, the silence, the distance, the desperate attempts to reach her son through therapy and medication and every expert money could buy, it all came crashing down. I don't know how to help him, she whispered. I've tried everything, and nothing works. But then we sat at your table for 30 minutes, and he smiled. He spoke. He colored with crayons. And I realized I had no idea how to give him that, whatever that was. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Can I get you some coffee? The shift was so unexpected that Victoria almost laughed. What? Coffee. You look like you haven't slept, and this conversation probably goes better if you're not about to collapse. Yes. Okay. Coffee. They walked into the kitchen. Mia and Noah were at the table, carefully placing sprinkles on misshapen cookies. Mia was narrating every decision. Noah was listening, actually engaged. Ethan poured 2 mugs of coffee, handed one to Victoria. They stood by the counter, watching the kids. He doesn't have friends, Victoria said quietly. Doesn't talk at school, sits alone at lunch. The other kids don't bully him. They just forget he's there, like he's invisible. Mia could talk to a wall and make it feel included, Ethan said. There was affection in his voice, but also something else. Understanding born from experience. How do you do it? Victoria asked. How do you make it look so easy? Ethan laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. It's not easy. It's just different priorities. What do you mean? He set his mug down, leaned against the counter. 3 years ago, I was an emergency room physician, trauma specialist. I was good at it, really good. 70-hour weeks, impossible cases, high-pressure decisions. I thought I was saving the world. Victoria listened, barely breathing. Then my wife got sick, Ethan continued. His voice was steady, but Victoria could hear the weight beneath it. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, diagnosed on a Tuesday, gone by Saturday, 4 days. And I wasn't there when she died because I was in surgery, saving someone else's life. I'm so sorry, Victoria said. Mia was 3. She didn't understand why her mom was gone. She'd ask for her every night. And I realized I had a choice. I could keep being the doctor who saved strangers and lost his daughter to grief, or I could be the father who was actually present. So you quit. So I quit. He looked at her. I work as a medical consultant now, remote, part-time. Pays a fraction of what I used to make. But I'm home when Mia needs me. I make her breakfast. I help with homework. I'm there. Victoria thought about her penthouse, her executive assistant, her carefully scheduled 15 minutes of quality time with Noah before his bedtime. You think I'm failing him? She said. I think you're doing what you know how to do, Ethan said carefully. You're trying to fix the problem, but sometimes kids don't need fixing. They just need presence. I don't know how to do that. Neither did I. I learned. From the table, Mia's voice rang out. Daddy, Noah says he's never made cookies before. Can he take some home? Of course he can, sweetheart, Mia beamed. Noah was smiling, actually smiling. Victoria felt something crack open in her chest. Teach me, she said to Ethan. He looked at her, surprised. What? Teach me how to do this, how to be present, how to… She gestured helplessly at the scene in front of them. Whatever this is. Victoria, I'm not a therapist. I have therapists. They don't help. But 30 minutes with your daughter, and my son remembered how to laugh. She met his eyes. Please. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Why don't you start by staying for cookies? It was such a simple invitation, but it felt like the hardest thing Victoria had ever accepted. Okay, she said. We'll stay. They sat at the table. Mia distributed cookies with the seriousness of someone performing surgery. Noah took a bite and actually said, These are good. 3 words, unprompted. Victoria had to look away before anyone saw the tears in her eyes. They spent 2 hours there. Mia showed Noah her collection of stuffed dinosaurs. They played a card game Victoria had never heard of. Ethan made sandwiches for lunch, simple, messy, perfect. And Victoria watched, really watched. The way Ethan listened when Mia talked, giving her his full attention even when she was describing, in exhaustive detail, the differences between a Triceratops and a Styracosaurus. The way he didn't rush her, didn't correct her, just let her be exactly who she was. The way Noah relaxed in that space, the way his shoulders dropped, the way his voice got a little louder, a little more confident. When it was time to leave, Mia hugged Noah goodbye. Can you come back tomorrow? Noah looked at Victoria. She looked at Ethan. If it's not an imposition, she said. Ethan smiled. It's not. In the car on the way home, Noah was quiet again. But it was a different quiet, peaceful instead of empty. Did you have fun? Victoria asked. Yeah, he paused. Mom? Yeah? Can we really go back tomorrow? If you want to. I want to. Victoria's phone buzzed. She ignored it. Probably another crisis. Another fire to put out. For the first time in her career, she didn't care. They got home just as the sun was setting. Victoria's laptop was still on the coffee table, notifications piling up. News alerts about the board meeting, emails from investors demanding answers, a text from Claire marked urgent. Victoria closed the laptop without reading any of it. "Pizza for dinner?" she asked Noah. He looked at her like she'd suggested they fly to the moon. "Really? Really? You picked the toppings." They ordered pizza, ate it on the couch while watching a documentary about dinosaurs that Mia had recommended. Noah fell asleep halfway through, his head on Victoria's shoulder. She sat there, not moving, barely breathing, terrified of breaking the moment. Her son was touching her, voluntarily, trustingly. When was the last time that had happened? Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it. "Victoria, we need to talk. The board is moving forward with the suspension. If you don't respond, you're going to lose everything." Victoria looked at Noah. At his peaceful face, finally relaxed in sleep. Then she turned off her phone. Some things, she was beginning to understand, were worth more than everything. The next morning, Victoria woke to sunlight streaming through windows she'd forgotten to cover and the sound of Noah humming in his room. Actually humming. She lay there for a moment, disoriented, before remembering she'd turned off her phone the night before. She reached for it now, hesitating before pressing the power button. The screen lit up with a cascade of notifications. 47 missed calls. 63 emails. 21 text messages, most from Claire, each one more frantic than the last. The most recent was timestamped 2 hours ago. "If I don't hear from you by 9 a.m., I'm calling the police to do a wellness check." Victoria glanced at the clock. 8:45. She called Claire. "Thank God," Claire answered on the first ring. "Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you since yesterday afternoon. The press conference is in 3 hours. Wilson is—" "Cancel my morning," Victoria said. Silence. Then, carefully, "Cancel your morning. All of it. Reschedule everything." "Victoria, you can't just— the board meeting, the press response, the investor calls." "Claire," Victoria's voice was calm but final. "I said cancel it." Another pause. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Better than fine. I'll be in this afternoon. Handle Wilson however you need to until then." Handle Wilson? He's about to announce himself as interim CEO on live television. "Let him." Victoria surprised herself with how little the words stung. "I'll deal with it when I get there." She hung up before Claire could argue further. Noah appeared in her doorway, already dressed. "Are we going to Mia's house?" Victoria looked at her son, at the anticipation on his face, and made a decision that 3 days ago would have been unthinkable. "Yes," she said. "We are." They stopped for breakfast on the way, a small diner Noah had apparently noticed from the car window, but never asked to visit. The booths were cracked vinyl, the coffee was mediocre, and Noah ordered chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream and ate every bite. Victoria watched him, this small person she'd created but barely knew, and felt something shift in her understanding of what success actually meant. When they arrived at Ethan's house just after 9, Mia was already on the front porch wearing mismatched socks and a cape made from a beach towel. "You came!" she shrieked, launching herself down the steps. "Daddy said you might not come, but I knew you would because I wished on 3 stars last night, and you can't waste 3 wishes." Noah actually laughed. "You can't wish on stars during the day." "I wished last night for today. It still counts." Mia grabbed his hand. "Come on, we're building a fort in the living room, and it's going to be the best fort ever made in the history of the entire world." The children disappeared inside before Victoria had even closed her car door. Ethan emerged from the house, coffee mug in hand, looking amused. "She's been awake since 6, he said. "Wouldn't eat breakfast until I promised Noah was really coming." "I'm sorry. We should have called first." "Victoria." Ethan's voice was gentle but firm. "You apologize a lot for things that don't need apologies." She opened her mouth to apologize for apologizing, then caught herself. "That's a hard habit to break." "Most good changes are." He gestured toward the house. "Coffee's fresh." Fair warning, the fort construction is very serious business. Mia has architectural plans. Inside, the living room had been transformed into an elaborate structure of couch cushions, blankets, and what appeared to be every pillow in the house. Mia was directing Noah with the intensity of a general commanding troops. "No, that blanket goes on the left side for the window.
We need to see out, but nobody can see in. It's a spy fort. Noah was following her instructions precisely, more animated than Victoria had seen him in years. He caught sight of her and actually waved. Waved. Victoria felt her throat tighten. Ethan handed her a mug of coffee. You look like someone just performed a miracle in front of you. He waved at me. Victoria's voice cracked slightly. That sounds ridiculous. A 7-year-old waved at his mother, but it doesn't sound ridiculous. Ethan sat down at the kitchen table, and Victoria joined him. From where they sat, they could see the children through the doorway, heads bent together over Mia's plans, which appeared to be crayon drawings on the back of junk mail. Can I ask you something? Victoria said after a moment. Of course. Yesterday you said you learned how to be present, but how? What does that actually mean in practice? Ethan considered this, his fingers wrapped around his mug. Start with the small things. When Noah talks to you, stop what you're doing. All of it. Phone down, laptop closed, eyes on him. Even if he's saying something that seems insignificant. I do listen to him. Do you? Or are you listening while also checking email, planning your next meeting, thinking about the 40 other things you need to accomplish? Victoria wanted to argue, but honesty stopped her. The second one. Kids know the difference. They always know. Mia can tell when I'm really listening versus when I'm just hearing words while my mind is somewhere else. What else? Get down on their level. Literally. Sit on the floor. Make eye contact. Let them see that in that moment, nothing matters more than what they're saying. Ethan paused. And maybe the hardest part? Let go of the outcome. Stop trying to fix or teach or guide every conversation. Sometimes kids just need to be heard. Victoria watched Noah carefully draping a blanket over what Mia had designated as the secret entrance. I don't know if I know how to do that. My whole life is about outcomes. Then maybe that's what you need to unlearn. From the fort, Mia's voice rang out. It's done. Noah, you have to come inside first because you're the guest. Close your eyes. Noah closed his eyes obediently. Mia took his hand and led him through the blanket door. There was a moment of silence, then Mia's delighted announcement. Now open them. Wow, Noah said, and Victoria could hear genuine amazement in his voice. This is really cool. I know, right? We have snacks in here and everything. Daddy packed us crackers. Ethan stood. That's my cue. Mia's very particular about fort snacks. I'll be right back. He disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Victoria alone with her cooling coffee and the sound of children laughing from inside a blanket fort. Her phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out. Claire again. Wilson just started the press conference. He's claiming you've had a breakdown. Says the board voted unanimously for your removal. I need you to respond. Victoria stared at the message. A breakdown. They were calling her newfound clarity a breakdown. Maybe it was. Maybe walking away from a board meeting to find a stranger who'd made her son smile was irrational. Maybe tracking someone down through security footage was unhinged. Maybe sitting in a modest kitchen in Queens while her empire burned was the definition of lost perspective. Or maybe, for the first time in 7 years, she finally had perspective. She typed back, I'll handle it. Stop worrying. Ethan returned with a plate of crackers and apple slices arranged into a smiley face. Mia requires presentation, he explained, carrying it toward the fort. Special delivery for Fort Awesome. Fort Awesome? Mia's voice was indignant. It's called Fort Invincible. My apologies. Special delivery for Fort Invincible. Small hands reached through the blanket door and pulled the plate inside. Victoria heard Noah say, My mom never makes food look like faces. That's because your mom is probably very busy, Mia said matter-of-factly. My daddy says busy people forget that food can be fun. Ethan returned to the table, shaking his head with a small smile. She's not wrong. Does she know? Victoria asked quietly. About her mother? She knows her mom died. She was too young to really understand at the time, but we talk about it. I show her pictures, tell her stories. Ethan's expression softened. She asked me once if her mom would be proud of her. I said yes, absolutely yes. And then she said, but you're proud of me too, right? And I realized she needed to know that the parent she has now is enough. The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. And is it? Are you enough?
Some days yes, some days no, but I show up and I try, and I let her see me trying, even when I fail. He looked at her directly. Kids don't need perfect parents, Victoria. They need real ones. Before she could respond, her phone rang. Not a text this time, an actual call. The screen showed her lawyer's name. I have to take this, she said apologetically. Use the bedroom, second door on the left. Privacy. Victoria walked down the narrow hallway, the sounds of children's laughter fading behind her. She closed the bedroom door and answered. Richard. Victoria, where the hell have you been? Her lawyer's voice was sharp with stress. Wilson just publicly announced your removal. He's claiming mental instability, breach of fiduciary duty, and unauthorized use of company resources. The board backed him. The stock is down 18%. We need to file an injunction immediately, but I can't do that without you answering your damn phone. Victoria sat on the edge of Ethan's bed. The room was simple. A dresser with photos on top, a stack of medical journals on the nightstand, a child's drawing taped to the wall. It smelled like laundry detergent and coffee. What unauthorized use of resources? She asked. Apparently you used company security to run a personal investigation. License plates, surveillance footage? Victoria, tell me Wilson is lying. She closed her eyes. He's not lying. Jesus Christ, do you know how that looks? The CEO using corporate assets to... What were you even investigating? It's not relevant. It's extremely relevant. If we can't explain it, if there's any hint of impropriety... Richard, Victoria's voice was steady. I'm not fighting this. Silence. Then slowly, what do you mean you're not fighting this? Exactly what I said. Let Wilson have the interim position. Let the board think they've won. Victoria, if you don't fight this now, you'll lose the company. Everything you've built, I built a company, Victoria interrupted. I didn't build a life, and I'm starting to understand the difference. This is insane. You're talking like someone who's given up. I'm talking like someone who's finally paying attention to what matters. Through the door, she could hear Mia teaching Noah some kind of song about dinosaurs. He was singing along, quietly, off-key, but singing. File whatever paperwork you need to for the transition. Make it clean. I'll cooperate fully. And then what? You just walk away? I didn't say that, but I'm done making decisions out of fear of losing something that's already cost me everything important. She stood. I need to go. Victoria. She ended the call and turned off her phone again. When she emerged from the bedroom, Ethan was in the hallway, clearly trying to look like he hadn't been listening. Everything okay? He asked. I just lost my company, Victoria said. The words felt strange in her mouth. Not painful exactly, just surreal. Ethan's eyebrows rose. That sounds like it should be accompanied by more emotion. I know, it's strange. I should be devastated, furious, already planning my counterattack. She leaned against the wall. Instead, I just feel tired and maybe relieved. Relieved? I've spent 7 years fighting, building, proving, defending. And for what? So I could have the biggest office and the longest meetings and come home to a son who barely speaks to me? Victoria looked toward the living room where the children's voices drifted through. What's the point of winning if you lose everything that makes winning worth it? Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, There's a park about 10 minutes from here. The one Mia mentioned at the restaurant. We usually go on Saturdays. There's a pond, ducks, a playground. Very normal, very boring. Want to come? To a park? To a park, where you can sit on a bench and watch your kid be a kid and not solve a single problem or strategize a single move. He smiled slightly. Radical concept, I know. Victoria found herself smiling back. Okay, yes, let's go to the park. They extracted the children from Fort Invincible with promises that it would still be there when they returned. Mia insisted Noah hold one of her stuffed dinosaurs, for protection, and Noah, to Victoria's amazement, didn't refuse. The park was exactly as Ethan had described. Nothing special. A pond with ducks and geese, a slightly rusted playground, walking paths where joggers and dog walkers passed in steady streams. It was full of families, of normalcy, of life happening at a pace that didn't demand anything except presence. Mia dragged Noah toward the ducks immediately,
clutching a bag of approved duck food Ethan had brought. Victoria stood at the edge of the pond, watching her son crouch down beside Mia, watching him throw pieces of food and actually laugh when the ducks rushed forward. "He's never done this," she said quietly. "In 7 years, I've never brought him to feed ducks." "It's not too late to start," Ethan said.
They walked the perimeter of the pond slowly, staying close enough to watch the children but far enough to give them space. Mia was narrating an elaborate story about the ducks being secret agents. Noah was listening, occasionally adding details in his quiet voice. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said after a while. "What made you decide to help us? You don't know us. We showed up at your home uninvited. Most people would have called the police." Ethan considered this. "When you came to the door yesterday, you looked desperate. Not in a dangerous way, in a heartbroken way. Like someone who'd just realized they'd been climbing the wrong mountain." He glanced at her. "I know what that looks like. I've been there. And you just decided to trust us?" "I decided to trust that a mother who'd tracked down a stranger to help her son wasn't someone I needed to fear." He paused. "Plus, Mia's been asking for a friend since we moved here. She's in kindergarten, but she's intense. Other kids don't always know what to do with her. Noah's the opposite. He's so quiet, other kids forget he's there. Maybe that's why they work. She fills his silence. He gives her someone who actually listens." They had circled back to where the children were now climbing on the playground equipment. Mia was showing Noah how to cross the monkey bars, demonstrating with the confidence of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. Noah watched carefully, then tried. He made it 3 bars before his hand slipped. Victoria tensed, ready to rush forward, but Ethan's hand on her arm stopped her. "Wait," he said quietly. Noah hung there for a moment, then dropped to the ground. Mia immediately jumped down beside him. "That was so good," Mia said enthusiastically. "I could only do 2 bars when I first tried. You did 3. Noah looked at his hands. "I'm not very strong." "Yet. You're not very strong yet. That's what my daddy always says. Yet is the most important word." Mia grabbed his hand. "Come on, let's try again." They climbed back up. This time Noah made it 4 bars. "See?" Mia was practically bouncing. "You got better already." Victoria felt something unlock in her chest. She'd spent years trying to shield Noah from failure, from disappointment, from anything that might make him withdraw further. But maybe that was exactly the problem. Maybe he needed to fall and get back up. Maybe he needed someone to celebrate 3 bars instead of mourning the 7 he missed. "I've been doing everything wrong," she said softly. "You've been doing everything with the tools you had," Ethan corrected. "Now you're learning new ones." Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. They stayed at the park for 3 hours. The children played until they were exhausted, then collapsed on a blanket Ethan had brought and ate sandwiches he'd packed. Noah ate without being prompted, talked between bites, fell asleep with his head on the blanket, the stuffed dinosaur still clutched in one hand. "We should probably go," Victoria said reluctantly. "I've taken up your whole day." "You say that like it's a bad thing." Ethan was sitting on the grass, his back against a tree, looking more relaxed than she'd seen him. "Mia needed this? I think Noah did too. What about you? Don't you have work, things to do? I have consulting calls on Monday. Today is Saturday. Today is for this." Victoria looked at him, really looked at him. At the way he sat in the grass without worrying about stains, the way he watched the sleeping children with quiet contentment, the way he existed in the moment without trying to optimize it or monetize it or turn it into something productive. "How do you do it?" she asked. "How do you just be okay with enough?" "Who says I am?" Ethan's smile was self-deprecating. "I lie awake some nights wondering if I'm failing Mia by not giving her more. Better schools, travel, opportunities, all the things money could buy. But you chose this anyway." "I chose presence over presence. Most days I believe it was the right choice. Some days I'm not sure. But I'm here, and she knows I'm here, and maybe that's enough." He looked at her. "What about you? What do you actually want?" Victoria watched Noah sleep. "I want him to be happy. I want to know him. Really know him. Not just what his therapist says about him or what his teachers report. I want to know what he dreams about and what scares him and what makes him laugh.
Her voice dropped. I want to matter to him more than my company matters to me. So make different choices. It's not that simple, isn't it? Ethan's voice was gentle but challenging. You're the CEO, or you were. Either way, you have more control over your life than most people ever get. The question isn't whether you can change, it's whether you will.
Before Victoria could respond, Mia stirred and sat up, rubbing her eyes. Is it time to go home? Soon, sweetheart. Can Noah come for dinner? Victoria opened her mouth to say they'd already imposed enough, but Ethan spoke first. If his mom says yes. Two pairs of eyes turned to Victoria. Mia's hopeful, Noah's carefully neutral, but with something underneath. Want. Her son wanted something, and he was letting her see it. Yes, Victoria said. We'd love to. Mia cheered. Noah smiled. And Victoria felt another piece of the wall around her life crack and fall away. Dinner at Ethan's house was chaos in the best possible way. Mia insisted on helping cook, which meant flour on the floor and sauce on the ceiling, and Noah laughing so hard he got hiccups. They made pasta from scratch, or tried to. The dough fell apart, the sauce was too salty, the garlic bread burned slightly on the edges. It was perfect. They ate at the small kitchen table, elbows bumping, conversation overlapping. Mia told elaborate stories about her kindergarten class. Noah actually contributed details about his own school, small observations Victoria had never heard before. Ethan asked questions that weren't interrogations, just genuine curiosity, and Victoria sat there watching her son be alive and felt like she was seeing color for the first time after years of black and white. After dinner, the children convinced them to play a board game Mia had gotten for her birthday. It was designed for 6-year-olds and made absolutely no sense, but they played anyway. Noah won. Mia declared him the champion and made him a crown out of construction paper. He wore it all the way home. In the car, as the city lights blurred past, Noah said, "Can we see them again tomorrow?" "I don't know if Ethan has plans. Can you ask?" Victoria glanced at him in the rearview mirror. He was looking at her directly. No wall, no distance. Just her son, asking for something he wanted. "Yes," she said. "I'll ask." When they got home, Noah went to brush his teeth without being told. Victoria stood in the living room, looking at the laptop she'd ignored all day. Slowly, she opened it. The news was everywhere. Kane Industries in crisis. Billionaire CEO removed by board. Victoria Kane's fall from grace. There were photos of Wilson at the press conference, looking somber and responsible, quotes from board members about difficult decisions and the company's future, analysis pieces about her failed leadership and inevitable collapse. She should feel devastated, humiliated, furious. Instead, she felt free. Her phone rang. She answered without looking at the caller ID. Victoria Kane. Ms. Kane, this is Patricia Morrison from the Wall Street Journal. I'd like to get your response to today's announcement. Do you have any comment on your removal from Kane Industries? Victoria looked at the construction paper crown Noah had left on the kitchen counter. At the crayon drawing Mia had sent home with him, 2 stick figures labeled Noah and Mia, best friends. At the flowers still dusted on her sleeve from dinner. No comment, she said, but I appreciate you calling. She hung up. Blocked the number. Then she sent a text to Ethan. Noah wants to know if we can see you tomorrow. No pressure. I know we've monopolized your weekend. The response came 30 seconds later. Mia's already planning the menu. Come at 10. Bring appetites. Victoria smiled, set down her phone. And when Noah emerged from the bathroom in his pajamas, she sat on the floor, and asked him about his favorite part of the day. He sat down beside her, and he talked. Really talked. For 20 minutes, he described the park and the ducks, and Mia's stories, and the monkey bars, and how he wanted to practice so he could make it all the way across. Victoria listened. No phone, no laptop, no divided attention, just her son and his words, and the miracle of being trusted with them. When he finally ran out of things to say, he leaned against her shoulder. Mom? Yeah? Today was the best day I've had in a really long time. Victoria wrapped her arm around him. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. That night, After Noah fell asleep, Victoria made a list. Not a business strategy, not a recovery plan. Just a simple list of things she wanted to learn how to do. Make pancakes, play board games without checking her phone. Sit on the floor, listen without fixing. Be enough. She had no idea if she could actually do any of it, but for the first time in 7 years, she was willing to try. Sunday morning arrived with rain. Not the gentle kind that whispered against windows, but the aggressive sort that hammered the glass and turned the streets into rivers. Victoria stood at her kitchen window with coffee growing cold in her hands, watching water stream down 47 stories, and felt her carefully constructed peace begin to crack. Noah appeared beside her, still in his pajamas, the construction paper crown slightly bent from sleep. "Are we still going to Mia's house?" His voice carried the particular fragility of hope, expecting disappointment. Victoria checked her phone. No message from Ethan canceling. Just 17 new emails from her legal team, 12 from board members who apparently had urgent concerns now that they'd successfully removed her, and one from Claire that simply read, "We need to talk, today." "Yes," Victoria said, setting down her coffee. "We're still going." The drive took twice as long in the rain. Traffic crawled, windshield wipers working overtime, the world outside reduced to blurred shapes and gray water. Noah sat quietly in the back, clutching the stuffed dinosaur Mia had lent him, staring out at the storm. Victoria's phone rang through the car's speakers. Claire's name flashed on the dashboard screen. "I need to take this," Victoria said apologetically. "Claire, what is it?" "What is it?" Claire's voice was sharp with stress. "What is it?" "Victoria, Wilson just announced a complete restructuring. He's fired half the executive team. Your office has been cleared out. He's installing his own people in every position of power, and the board is letting him do it because you won't fight back." Victoria navigated around a slow-moving truck, rain hammering the roof. "Okay. Okay? That's all you have to say. This is your company." "Was my company," Victoria corrected quietly. "And maybe it needs restructuring. Maybe Wilson will do things I should have done years ago." Silence. Then, "Who are you and what have you done with Victoria Kane?" "I'm figuring that out myself." Victoria glanced in the rearview mirror at Noah, who was pretending not to listen while clearly absorbing every word. "Claire, I appreciate everything you've done, but I need you to stop calling unless something is actually on fire. The entire company is on fire. Then let it burn. I'll call you tomorrow." She ended the call before Claire could respond. The car fell quiet except for the rain and the rhythmic squeak of the wipers. "Mom?" Noah's voice was small. "Are you in trouble?" Victoria had spent 7 years shielding him from her professional life, from stress and complexity and adult problems. But sitting there in traffic, watching rain turn the world into watercolor through the windshield, she realized that protection had also meant distance. "Yes," she said honestly, "I am. The people I worked with, are upset because I'm making different choices now." "What kind of choices?" "Choosing to spend time with you instead of spending time fixing problems at work." Noah was quiet for a moment. "Do you regret it?" The question landed with unexpected weight. Victoria thought about her corner office, her name on the building, the power she'd wielded with practiced precision. Then she thought about yesterday. Flour on the floor, Noah's laughter, the simple miracle of her son talking to her for 20 uninterrupted minutes. "No," she said, "I don't regret it at all." They arrived at Ethan's house to find Mia already on the porch despite the rain, wearing a raincoat covered in cartoon frogs and boots that lit up with every step. "Noah!" she shouted, jumping down the steps. "We're making pancakes and I get to flip them, but Daddy says I have to be careful because the stove is hot, but I'm very responsible for my age." Noah actually ran to meet her, the two of them standing in the rain for a moment before Ethan appeared in the doorway. "Inside, both of you, before you catch pneumonia, and I have to explain to your parents why you're sick." He caught Victoria's eye. "Good morning. Coffee's ready." "You're a miracle worker," Victoria said, following the children inside. The house smelled like vanilla and butter. The kitchen was already chaotic, bowls scattered across the counter, a bag of flour tipped over, what appeared to be an entire egg on the floor. "We started without you," Ethan said apologetically. Mia was very excited. "I can see that." Victoria looked at the mess and felt something unexpected. Not judgment, not the need to control, just warmth. This was what life looked like when it was actually being lived. Mia had already stationed Noah at the counter with a whisk and a bowl. You have to stir it exactly 42 times. That's the rule. Who made that rule? Noah asked. I did. Just now. Start stirring. Noah stirred obediently while Mia supervised with the seriousness of a surgeon. Ethan handed Victoria a mug of coffee, and they retreated to the small kitchen table, close enough to supervise but far enough to let the children work. You look tired, Ethan observed. I didn't sleep much. My brain won't stop trying to solve problems that aren't mine to solve anymore. How bad is it? The work situation? Victoria wrapped her hands around the warm mug. Complete removal. My replacement is systematically dismantling everything I built. My team is being fired. My allies are scattered. In about 72 hours, there will be nothing left of my tenure except lawsuits and think pieces about how I lost control. And how do you feel about that? Terrified, Victoria admitted. Not of losing the company, of realizing I don't know who I am without it. She watched Noah carefully measuring flour while Mia narrated each step. I've been Victoria Kane, CEO, for so long that I forgot how to be just Victoria, or just mom. So you learn, Ethan said simply. Same way you learned everything else. Except this time the stakes are different. What if I'm not good at it? Being present, being enough. What if I'm fundamentally broken in ways that can't be fixed? Then you'll be broken and present. Still better than perfect and absent. Ethan took a sip of his coffee. You want to know a secret? I'm terrified every single day that I'm failing Mia. That choosing presence over career means she'll grow up without opportunities, without advantages, without everything my salary could have bought her. But you seem so confident. I'm an excellent actor. He smiled slightly. The truth is, parenting is just controlled panic wrapped in love and hope. You're not supposed to have all the answers. You're just supposed to keep showing up. Before Victoria could respond, there was a crash from the counter. Noah had dropped the bowl. Batter splattered across the floor, the counter, his shirt. He froze, his face draining of color, waiting for the reaction Victoria knew he expected. Anger, disappointment, the careful control that always followed his mistakes. Oops, Mia said cheerfully. That's okay. Daddy drops stuff all the time. One time he dropped an entire pot of soup and it went everywhere and we had to order pizza instead. Ethan was already standing, grabbing paper towels. No worries, buddy. Accidents happen. We'll make more batter. Noah looked at Victoria. She could see the apology forming, the shame, the retreat into silence. She walked over and knelt down beside the mess. You know what? I've never made pancakes. Want to teach me how? Noah's eyes widened slightly. Really? Really? Mia seems to know what she's doing. Maybe you two can show me. What followed was 45 minutes of the messiest, most chaotic cooking Victoria had ever witnessed. Batter ended up on the ceiling. Mia insisted on making heart-shaped pancakes that came out looking more like amoebas. Noah accidentally added salt instead of sugar to one batch, and they all tasted it anyway, making exaggerated faces that dissolved into laughter. Victoria burned 3 pancakes. Noah flipped one directly onto the floor. Mia's special recipe involved adding chocolate chips, blueberries, and gummy bears to the same pancake, creating something that looked more like a science experiment than food. They ate at the kitchen table, syrup dripping everywhere, rain still hammering against the windows. It was loud and messy and absolutely perfect. Victoria's phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. You can check it, Ethan said quietly. We understand if you need to deal with something. Victoria looked at her phone. 7 missed calls, all from numbers she recognized. Board members, lawyers, investors, people who needed her to react, to fight, to be the Victoria Kane they expected. She turned the phone off and set it face down on the table. No, she said. I don't need to deal with anything right now. After breakfast, the rain had softened to a drizzle. The children wanted to go outside anyway, so Ethan found rain boots and jackets, and they all trooped into the small backyard. There was a sandbox that had turned into a small lake, a rusted swing set, and a garden that had seen better days. Mia immediately began constructing an elaborate mud castle. Noah hesitated for exactly 3 seconds before joining her, his nice clothes already forgotten. Victoria stood under the eave of the back porch with Ethan, watching them play. My nanny would be having a heart attack right now, she said. Noah's never been allowed to get this dirty. Why not? Control, I suppose. Dirt is messy. Mess is chaos. Chaos is something I spent my entire career eliminating. How's that working out for you? Victoria laughed, surprising herself. Poorly, apparently. Her phone was still off, but she could feel its absence like a phantom limb. Part of her brain was still running through scenarios, analyzing options, planning countermoves. The CEO in her hadn't died just because she'd stopped answering calls. Can I ask you something? Victoria said after a while. Why are you helping us? You barely know us. We've completely disrupted your weekend. You could have very reasonably told us to leave yesterday and never come back. Ethan watched Mia show Noah how to pack mud into bucket shapes. You want the honest answer? Please. Because Mia's been lonely since we moved here. She makes friends easily, but keeping them is harder. She's intense. She talks too much. She has big feelings about everything. Other kids don't always know what to do with that. He paused. But Noah listens to her. Really listens. Like every word she says matters, and she needed that. Maybe as much as he needed her. And what about you? What do you need? The question seemed to catch him off guard. He was quiet for a long moment, watching the children work together on their mud creation. Honestly, I've spent 3 years being just a dad, which is good, which is right, which is what Mia needs. But sometimes I miss being part of something bigger, having conversations about things other than kindergarten drama, and what dinosaur is the coolest. He glanced at her. You're the first adult I've talked to in months who doesn't know me as Mia's dad first, and everything else second. That must be isolating. It is, but it's also the choice I made, and most days it's enough. They fell into comfortable silence. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving everything wet and sparkling. Mia and Noah had moved from the sandbox to the swing set, taking turns pushing each other higher and higher. Victoria's professional instinct screamed at her to check her phone, to respond to the crisis, to take control of the narrative before it controlled her. But she stayed where she was, watching her son fly through the air on a rusty swing, his laughter carried on the damp breeze. I need to go back eventually, she said quietly, to the office, to the board. I can't just pretend it's not happening. No one's suggesting you should, but you can choose when and how you engage. You're not required to dance to their rhythm anymore. I don't know any other rhythm? Then maybe it's time to learn. They stayed until early afternoon. The children played until they were exhausted, covered head to toe in mud and happiness. When it was finally time to leave, Mia hugged Noah so tightly he actually hugged her back without prompting. Can you come back tomorrow? Mia asked. It's Monday, but that doesn't mean we can't have fun. Mondays need fun more than any other day. Noah looked at Victoria with a question in his eyes. I have some things I need to handle tomorrow, Victoria said carefully, but maybe we can come by after. Promise? Victoria had spent her career never making promises she couldn't guarantee, but looking at her son's hopeful face, she heard herself say, Promise. In the car, Noah was quiet, but it was a content quiet, satisfied rather than withdrawn. He held the muddy stuffed dinosaur in his lap and stared out the window with a small smile. Did you have fun? Victoria asked. Yeah. He paused. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you sad about losing your job? The question was so direct it took Victoria's breath away. She navigated through traffic, buying time to formulate an answer that was both honest and appropriate for a 7-year-old. Parts of me are sad, she said finally. I worked very hard for a very long time to build that company. Losing it feels like failing. But you didn't fail. They took it away from you. That's true, but I also chose to stop fighting for it, which feels different than having it stolen. Noah considered this. Why did you stop fighting? Because I realized fighting for the company meant not fighting for something more important. What's more important? Victoria glanced at him in the rearview mirror. You, us, being a family instead of just people who live in the same house. Noah nodded slowly, processing. Then, I think you made the right choice. Something in Victoria's chest cracked open. Yeah? Yeah. You're happier now, I can tell. Out of the mouths of children, Victoria thought. 7 years old, and he could see what her entire executive team had missed. That success without joy was just expensive emptiness. When they got home, Victoria finally turned her phone back on. The notifications flooded in: 63 missed calls, 112 emails, 27 text messages. She scrolled through them with a strange sense of detachment. One email stood out. From David Wilson himself, sent an hour ago. "Victoria, we need to talk. This restructuring isn't sustainable. The board is already having second thoughts. Call me." She stared at the message. A week ago, this would have been vindication. Proof that they needed her, that she was irreplaceable. That walking away had been the leverage she needed. Now it just felt like noise. She was composing a response when Noah appeared in the doorway. "Mom, can we make dinner together, like we did at Ethan's house?" Victoria looked at her inbox, at the crisis that was apparently spiraling, at the board that suddenly wanted her input after publicly humiliating her. Then she looked at her son. "Yes," she said, closing the laptop. "Let's make dinner." They made spaghetti, or tried to. The pasta was overcooked. The sauce came from a jar that Victoria wasn't entirely sure hadn't expired, and they somehow managed to break the salad spinner in a way that seemed physically impossible. But they did it together. Noah helped stir. Victoria asked his opinion on seasoning. They set the tables side by side, and when they sat down to eat their mediocre meal, Victoria felt more successful than she had at any business dinner in the past 5 years. "This is pretty good," Noah said diplomatically. "This is pretty terrible," Victoria corrected with a laugh. "But we made it ourselves, so it still counts as a win." "Can we do it again tomorrow?" "Absolutely. Maybe we'll actually look up a recipe this time." After dinner, after Noah's bath, after the bedtime story she read instead of delegating to the nanny she'd already decided to let go, Victoria sat alone in her living room and opened Wilson's email again. She hit reply and typed, "The company is yours now, David. Make it better than I did. I'm not coming back." She sent it before she could second-guess herself. 30 seconds later, her phone rang. Wilson. She declined the call. He called again. She declined again. The third time she answered, "Victoria, don't be rash." "I'm not being rash. I'm being deliberate. You wanted the company. You have it. Lead it." "The board wants you back." "With conditions, obviously, but they're willing to negotiate." "I'm not." Victoria's voice was calm. "I spent 7 years sacrificing everything for that company. My health, my relationships, my son. And for what? So a board of people who don't actually care about me could take it away the second I showed weakness? This is about ego. This is about priority. And my priority isn't fixing your mess anymore. You'll regret this. Maybe, but at least I'll regret it while actually raising my son instead of outsourcing it to nannies and therapists." She hung up, blocked his number. Then she did something she hadn't done in 7 years. She went to bed before midnight. The next morning, Victoria woke to find Noah already awake, sitting at the kitchen counter with a bowl of cereal, swinging his legs. "Are you going to work today?" he asked. "I need to go to the office to collect my things," Victoria said. "Want to come with me?" Noah's eyes widened. "To your office?" "Unless you'd rather stay home." "No, I want to come." They took their time getting ready. No rush, no stress. When they arrived at Kane Industries, the lobby felt different, foreign, like a place she'd visited in another life. Security recognized her but seemed unsure how to react. She was still technically the owner of 49% of the company, even if she no longer controlled it. "Ms. Kane," the guard said carefully, "Mr. Wilson didn't mention you were coming in today." "Mr. Wilson doesn't control my schedule anymore," Victoria said pleasantly. "I'm just here to clear out my office." She took Noah's hand and walked to the elevator. They rode up in silence, Noah's eyes wide as he watched the floor numbers climb. Her office door was closed, locked. Someone had changed the codes. Victoria felt a flicker of anger, quickly replaced by resignation. Of course they had. This was Wilson's building now. She called Claire. "Can you let me into my office? They changed the access codes." "Victoria, thank God. Listen, the board wants to meet with you this afternoon, 2 o'clock. They're willing to offer you a full restoration if you agree to certain oversight. Claire, the office codes." A pause. "Right. I'll be right there." Claire arrived 3 minutes later, looking harried and exhausted.
She unlocked the door without meeting Victoria's eyes. "Thank you," Victoria said quietly. "Are you really not coming back?" Claire's voice was small. "I'm really not." "But why? This is everything you worked for." "No."
Victoria looked at Noah, who was standing in the doorway of her office, staring at the massive windows and the view of the city spread out below. "This was everything I thought I wanted. There's a difference." She spent 2 hours packing, personal items, photos, a few books. Someone had already removed her nameplate from the desk. She left behind every file, every document, every trace of professional Victoria Kane. Noah helped, carefully wrapping a glass award in bubble wrap, asking questions about the photos on her wall. "Who's that?" He pointed to a picture of Victoria shaking hands with the mayor, someone who seemed important at the time. "And that one?" "The day the company went public. I thought I'd won everything." "But you hadn't?" "No, sweetheart. I hadn't." They were almost finished when the office door opened. David Wilson stood there, looking simultaneously confident and uncertain. "Victoria, I heard you were here. We should talk." He stopped when he saw Noah.
"I didn't realize you'd brought your son." "This is Noah." "Noah, this is David Wilson. He's the new CEO." Noah studied Wilson with the frank assessment only children can manage. "Do you work a lot?" Wilson blinked, thrown. "Excuse me? Do you work a lot? Like, all the time?" Yes. The position requires significant dedication." Noah nodded seriously. "My mom used to work all the time. She's happier now that she doesn't." Wilson's expression flickered. He looked at Victoria. "Can we speak privately?" "No need. I've said everything I have to say. The company is yours. Make something good of it." "The board thinks you're having a breakdown." "The board is wrong." Victoria picked up the last box. "I'm having a breakthrough. There's a difference." She walked past him, Noah's hand in hers, and didn't look back. In the elevator, Noah said, "That man seemed sad." "He did, didn't he? Do you think he has kids?" "I don't know. Why?" "Because if he does, I bet they miss him." Victoria squeezed his hand. "You're very wise, you know that?" "Mia says wisdom comes from experience. She's very wise, too." They drove straight to Ethan's house. It was only 1 in the afternoon, earlier than promised, but Victoria didn't care about protocol anymore. Mia answered the door, paint splattered across her face and hands. "You're early. We're making art. Come see." Ethan appeared behind her, equally paint-covered, looking surprised but pleased. "Everything okay?" "I quit," Victoria said. "Officially, completely. And I have no idea what I'm doing next." Ethan smiled. "Well, we're painting. Want to join us?" Victoria looked at the paint, at her expensive clothes that she'd worn out of habit, at the life she was holding on to with one hand while reaching for something new with the other. "Yes," she said, "I really do." They painted for 3 hours. Abstract chaos on giant sheets of paper spread across the kitchen floor. Noah created something that might have been a dinosaur, or might have been a spaceship. Mia made a portrait of their family. 4 stick figures holding hands under a crooked sun. Victoria painted for the first time since college and discovered she was terrible at it. The colors bled together, her shapes were unrecognizable, nothing looked like she intended. It was absolutely liberating. As the afternoon sun slanted through the windows, turning the paint-splattered kitchen golden, Victoria sat on the floor surrounded by art and laughter and children who didn't care about quarterly earnings or market share or anything except whether the next brushstroke should be purple or green. And she realized something. She'd spent 7 years building an empire, but this messy, chaotic, imperfect afternoon, this was what winning actually felt like. The paint was still drying on the kitchen floor when Victoria's phone rang for what felt like the 100th time that day. She'd stopped checking caller ID hours ago, but this time the ringtone was different. Her emergency line, the one only 3 people had access to, reserved for actual crises. She stepped into Ethan's small hallway and answered. "Ms. Kane, this is Marcus." Her head of security sounded tense. "We have a situation. The press is camped outside your building. Photographers, reporters, camera crews. Wilson gave an interview an hour ago claiming you abandoned the company during a critical financial period. It's everywhere." Victoria leaned against the wall, paint still on her hands, children's laughter echoing from the kitchen. Okay? Okay? Marcus's voice pitched higher. Ma'am, they're calling it corporate negligence. There are questions about shareholder lawsuits, SEC investigations. Your lawyer needs you to respond immediately. Tell my lawyer I'll call tomorrow. Tomorrow. Ms. Kane, with respect, this can't wait. Marcus, I appreciate your concern, but yes, it can wait. Tell the press I have no comment. Tell my lawyer I'll review whatever documents he needs me to review in the morning. Tell anyone else who asks that I'm unavailable. She ended the call before he could argue further and returned to the kitchen to find Ethan cleaning brushes at the sink, while Noah and Mia argued cheerfully about whether dinosaurs or dragons would win in a fight. Everything all right? Ethan asked quietly. Apparently I'm the villain in tomorrow's news cycle. Corporate abandonment, potential lawsuits, the usual destruction of reputation. Victoria picked up a damp cloth and started wiping paint from the table. Strange thing is, I don't actually care. You don't care at all? Or you're pretending not to care? Victoria paused, considering. I care that my name is being dragged through the mud. I care that people I worked with for years are probably celebrating my downfall. But do I care enough to stop what I'm doing right now and go fix it? She looked at Noah, who was demonstrating dinosaur attack poses to Mia. No, I really don't. Ethan dried his hands on a towel. That's growth, or possibly denial. Hard to tell which. Hopefully growth. Victoria set down the cloth. Can I ask you something? When you left medicine, when you walked away from your career, did you ever regret it? Did you ever wake up and wonder if you'd made a massive mistake? Every Tuesday, Ethan said without hesitation, and most Thursdays. Sometimes on weekends when I'm paying bills and calculating how much longer I can stretch the grocery budget. But you didn't go back. No, because every time I consider it, I look at Mia, really look at her, and I remember what I'd be trading. Sure, I could make 10 times what I make now. I could afford a bigger house, better schools, fancy vacations. But I'd miss bedtime stories. I'd miss the way she explains her dreams over breakfast. I'd miss the Tuesday afternoon dance parties and the Saturday morning pancakes and all the small moments that actually matter. He met Victoria's eyes. Money can buy a lot of things. It can't buy this. From the kitchen, Mia's voice rang out. Daddy, Noah needs to stay for dinner because we're in the middle of a very important project. What project? Ethan called back. We're building a time machine out of cardboard boxes, obviously. Ethan looked at Victoria with raised eyebrows. Your call. Victoria thought about her empty penthouse, her abandoned office, her imploding professional reputation. Then she thought about Noah's face, paint-smudged and genuinely happy. We'd love to stay, she said. Dinner was grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup from a can. The children ate in their cardboard time machine, now situated in the middle of the living room and decorated with an alarming amount of aluminum foil. Victoria and Ethan sat at the kitchen table, comfortable silence stretching between them. Can I tell you something? Victoria said eventually. A week ago, if someone had told me I'd be sitting in a modest house in Queens eating canned soup while my billion-dollar company collapsed, I would have thought they were describing my worst nightmare. And now? Now I think this might be the first real meal I've had in years. Ethan smiled. The soup is Campbell's. There's nothing real about it. You know what I mean. I do. He set down his spoon. Victoria, what are you going to do? Long term, I mean. You can't hide from reality forever. I'm not hiding. I'm choosing. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're running away from a fight. The words stung because they were partially true. Victoria had spent her career running toward challenges, never backing down, never retreating. Walking away felt like weakness, like failure, like everything she'd sworn she'd never be. Maybe I am running, she admitted, but maybe some fights aren't worth winning. Maybe some battles cost more than the victory is worth. And maybe some are worth fighting because of what you'd lose by walking away. Victoria frowned. I thought you said I should prioritize Noah over the company. I did. I do. But there's a middle ground between sacrificing everything for work and abandoning everything you built. Ethan leaned forward. You don't have to choose between being a good mother and being a competent professional. You just have to choose not to let either one consume you entirely. That sounds impossible. It is impossible, which is why you fail at it regularly and forgive yourself for the failures and keep trying anyway.
He paused. You think I'm present for Mia every single moment? Last week I missed her school performance because I was on a consultation call I couldn't reschedule. She cried. I felt like garbage. But I apologized. We talked about it, and I promised to do better. Not to be perfect, just better. From the living room, Noah's voice called out, "Mom, come see what we built!" Victoria stood and walked to the time machine. It was objectively terrible. Boxes held together with duct tape, covered in crayon drawings of clocks and gears, with a control panel made from an egg carton and bottle caps. "It's incredible," Victoria said honestly. "Get in," Mia demanded. "We need to test it." Victoria looked at the cramped cardboard structure. Her suit was already ruined from paint. Her hair was a mess. Her professional reputation was in shambles. What was one more indignity? She climbed into the time machine. Noah and Mia squeezed in beside her, barely fitting. Mia began pushing bottle cap buttons and making elaborate whooshing sounds. Noah closed his eyes, actually playing along. "Where are we going?" Victoria asked. "To next week," Mia announced, "when everything is better and we're all best friends forever and nobody has to work too much and we can have pancakes every day." "That sounds perfect," Victoria whispered. They sat there in the cardboard box for 10 minutes, 3 people pretending to travel through time, and Victoria felt something fundamental shift inside her. This was joy. Uncomplicated, unmonetized, utterly pointless joy. And it mattered more than every quarterly earnings report she'd ever presented. When they finally emerged from the time machine, Noah was yawning. It was past 8, well past his usual bedtime, and Victoria knew she should take him home. But the thought of returning to their silent penthouse, to the avalanche of problems waiting for her, felt suffocating. "We should go," she said reluctantly. "Can we come back tomorrow?" Noah asked immediately. Before Victoria could answer, her phone rang again. She almost ignored it, but the name on the screen made her pause. Richard Chen, her personal lawyer and one of the few people she actually trusted. "I need to take this," she said apologetically, stepping back into the hallway. "Richard?" "Victoria, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all day. We have a serious problem." "More serious than corporate abandonment charges and reputation destruction?" "Much more serious. Wilson didn't just restructure the company. He sold off 3 of your key acquisitions to cover what he's calling debt obligations. Acquisitions you personally negotiated, that you put your own capital into. He's liquidating assets to make the books look better short-term, but he's destroying long-term value." Victoria's hand tightened on the phone. "He can't do that. The board would never approve." He got emergency authorization by claiming financial crisis. The same crisis he created by firing half the executive team and tanking employee morale. "Victoria, he's running the company into the ground, and he's doing it in your name because you're still listed as primary shareholder." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to fight this. Not for the company. For every employee who's about to lose their job, every shareholder who trusted you, every vendor who signed contracts in good faith. If you walk away now, Wilson wins, and hundreds of people suffer for it." Victoria closed her eyes. She could see it playing out. Wilson's incompetence masquerading as bold leadership. Good people losing livelihoods. Years of careful work destroyed in months. "What would fighting back look like?" she asked quietly. "Emergency shareholder meeting. You still have enough support to call for a vote of no confidence. We'd need to prove Wilson is acting in bad faith, that his decisions are harming the company rather than helping it. It's risky. It's ugly. But it's winnable." "How long would it take?" "If we move fast, we could have the meeting scheduled for Friday. 3 days to build the case, present evidence, and convince the board they made a mistake. 3 days of 16-hour workdays, conference calls and strategy sessions, and every ounce of energy I have. Yes, I won't lie to you, this would consume everything." Victoria looked through the doorway at Noah, who was explaining something to Mia with animated hand gestures. At Ethan, who was watching the children with quiet contentment. At the cardboard time machine and the paint-splattered floor and the life she'd just started learning how to live. "I need to think about it," she said. "Victoria, we don't have time. 24 hours. I'll call you tomorrow." She ended the call and stood in the hallway, heart pounding, mind racing. This was the test, wasn't it? The universe asking if she'd really changed or if she'd just been on vacation from herself. When she returned to the kitchen, Ethan took one look at her face and said, "Kids, why don't you go work on the time machine some more? Make it faster." Once they were alone, he asked, "What happened?" Victoria told him everything: the asset sales, the emergency meeting, the choice between fighting for the company and protecting the peace she'd just found. "What do you want to do?" Ethan asked when she finished. "I want to ignore it. I want to let Wilson destroy everything and tell myself it's not my problem anymore." But it is my problem. Those employees didn't ask for this. The vendors didn't deserve it. And walking away because it's easier doesn't make me evolved. It makes me a coward. Or it makes you someone who's finally prioritizing correctly. Does it? Or am I just using Noah as an excuse to avoid a fight I'm afraid of losing? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "When my wife died, I had a choice. I could stay in emergency medicine and honor her memory by saving lives. Or I could leave and honor her memory by raising our daughter the way we'd always planned. Both options were valid, both were loving, but only one felt true to who I needed to be." "Which did you choose?" "You know which I chose. But Victoria, my situation isn't yours. Mia was 3. She needed me every hour of every day. Noah is 7. He's in school. He's more independent, and more importantly, he needs to see you be strong, not just present." "I don't understand." "You've shown him it's okay to walk away from things that hurt you. That's valuable. But at some point, he also needs to see you fight for things that matter. Not compulsively, not self-destructively, but strategically, with purpose." Ethan met her eyes. "If you fight for the company, are you doing it because you can't let go? Or because letting go would harm people who trusted you?" Victoria thought about the employees she'd hired personally, the vendors who'd taken risks based on her word, the vision she'd built brick by brick. "The second one," she said quietly. "I think it's the second one." "Then maybe you have your answer." "But what about Noah? What about everything I've learned this week? What about it? 3 days of intense work doesn't erase a week of growth. It doesn't mean you're sliding back into old patterns. It means you're learning to balance." Ethan stood and started clearing dishes. "You know what the real question is? Can you fight this battle without losing yourself in it? Can you work 16-hour days for 3 days and then walk away on day 4 regardless of the outcome?" Could she? Victoria had never walked away from a fight unfinished, never left a battle half won. Her entire identity was built on seeing things through to completion. "I don't know," she admitted. "Then maybe that's what you need to figure out. Not whether to fight, but whether you can fight without it consuming you." That night, after they finally went home, after Noah fell asleep clutching his stuffed dinosaur, Victoria sat in her living room and made 2 lists, one titled Reasons to Fight, the other Reasons to Walk Away. The first list was longer: employees who'd lose jobs, vendors who'd lose contracts, shareholders who'd lose investments, her own reputation, the satisfaction of proving Wilson wrong. The second list was shorter but weightier: Noah's happiness, her own peace, the life she was just starting to build, the fear that winning would pull her back into patterns she'd just escaped. She stared at both lists until the words blurred. Then she picked up her phone and called Richard. "I'm in," she said when he answered. "But on my terms. I work from home. I'm present for breakfast and dinner with Noah. I don't miss bedtime. If that's not enough time to win, then we lose." "Victoria, that's not realistic." "Then we lose. Those are the terms." Richard was silent for a beat. "Okay, we'll make it work. And one more thing, when this is over, win or lose, I'm done. Not with working, but with this company. I want my shares sold, my ties severed, my name removed from the building. Can you make that happen?" "You're serious?" "Completely." "Then yes, I can make it happen." Victoria hung up and immediately called Ethan. It was late, past 11, but he answered on the second ring. "Did I wake you?" she asked. "No, Mia had a nightmare. I was just getting her settled. Everything okay? I'm going to fight, for the company, for 3 days." "Good." "Is it? Good?" "If you're doing it for the right reasons, yes. Are you?" Victoria thought about the question. "I'm doing it because walking away would haunt me.
But I'm also doing it with boundaries, with limits. Does that count as the right reasons? I think it counts as growth. Ethan? Victoria hesitated. If I get completely consumed by this, if I start slipping back into old patterns, will you tell me? Will you be honest even if it's uncomfortable? Yes, on one condition. What? You still show up for dinner on Wednesday. Mia's already planning the menu. Victoria felt herself smile. Deal. The next 3 days were brutal. Conference calls before breakfast, document reviews between lunch and dinner, strategy sessions after Noah went to bed. Richard assembled a team of lawyers and analysts who worked around the clock building the case against Wilson. The evidence was damning. Asset sales well below market value to companies Wilson had personal connections to, severance packages for fired executives that violated contractual terms, financial projections that were optimistic to the point of fiction. But Victoria worked differently than she had before. She was present for breakfast with Noah every morning, asking about his dreams, helping him choose clothes that matched. She worked while he was at school, intense and focused, but the moment he came home, her laptop closed. They made dinner together every night, sometimes successfully, sometimes disastrously, always together. She read him stories, listened to his day, tucked him in. And on Wednesday evening, they went to Ethan's house for dinner as promised. Mia had made place cards with everyone's names written in glitter. The meal was chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs and vegetables that had been hidden in the nuggets in a way that fooled absolutely no one. "How's the battle going?" Ethan asked quietly while the children played after dinner. "We present to the board Friday morning. Richard thinks we have enough to force Wilson out." "And how are you doing with it?" Victoria considered the question honestly. "I'm tired, stressed. There are moments I want to throw my phone out the window, but I'm not consumed. I'm not letting it eat me alive. And that feels like progress." "It is progress. I couldn't have done this a week ago, worked this hard without disappearing into it completely." "What changed?" Victoria watched Noah showing Mia how to build something with blocks, their heads bent together in concentration. "I learned what I'd be losing if I disappeared, and it turned out to be worth more than winning." Thursday night, the night before the board meeting, Victoria couldn't sleep. She reviewed her presentation 17 times, rehearsed her arguments, anticipated every question, every challenge, every possible outcome. At 2 a.m, she gave up on sleep and went to check on Noah. He was sprawled across his bed, covers kicked off, the stuffed dinosaur clutched against his chest. She sat on the edge of his bed and watched him sleep. This beautiful, complicated, silent child who'd been a stranger to her a week ago and was now the center of her universe. "I'm going to fight tomorrow," she whispered. "Not for the company, for the principle of it, for the people who deserve better. But when it's done, I'm coming back to you. No matter what happens, I'm choosing you. I hope someday you understand that." Noah stirred slightly but didn't wake. Victoria kissed his forehead and returned to her bedroom. Friday morning arrived cold and clear. Victoria dressed carefully, not in power suits and armor, but in clothes that felt like herself. Professional but not performative. Strong but not defensive. Noah had asked to come with her. She'd said no initially, but Ethan had quietly suggested otherwise. "Let him see you fight," Ethan had said. "Let him see you be powerful and present simultaneously. That's the lesson he needs." So Noah sat in the back of the car on the way to Kane Industries, dressed in his best clothes, quiet but alert. "Are you nervous?" he asked as they pulled up to the building. "Terrified," Victoria admitted. "But you're doing it anyway?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because some things are worth being scared for." The boardroom was exactly as she remembered. 12 faces, some sympathetic, some hostile, all uncertain. Wilson sat at the head of the table where she used to sit, looking confident but with tension around his eyes. Richard had arranged for Noah to wait in a conference room with a tablet and snacks. Victoria hugged him before walking into the meeting. "Be brave," Noah whispered. "You too," she whispered back. The presentation took 90 minutes. Victoria laid out every piece of evidence, every financial misstep, every violation of fiduciary duty. She was sharp, precise, merciless. But she wasn't cruel. She focused on facts, not character assassination. On impact, not personal grievances. Wilson tried to deflect, to spin, to reframe her evidence as difference of opinion rather than incompetence. But the numbers didn't lie. When she finished, the board deliberated for 45 minutes. Victoria waited outside, forcing herself to breathe steadily, reminding herself that the outcome didn't define her worth. When they called her back in, the board chair looked exhausted. The board has voted to remove David Wilson as CEO effective immediately. We'd like to offer you the position again with certain provisions about oversight and work-life balance. Victoria felt everyone in the room watching her, waiting for her to reclaim her throne, to prove this had all been about power. I appreciate the offer, she said calmly, but I decline. Shock rippled through the room. I recommend Patricia Morrison as interim CEO while you conduct a proper search. She's competent, she's trustworthy, and she actually wants the job. Victoria stood. I'll remain as a major shareholder long enough to ensure stability. Then I'm selling my shares and stepping away completely. Victoria, the board chair started. This company was my life for 7 years. I built it from scandal into success, but I did it at a cost I'm not willing to pay anymore. Find someone who can lead it without sacrificing everything that matters. That person isn't me. She walked out of the boardroom with her head high. Noah was waiting in the conference room, looking up anxiously when she entered. Did you win? He asked. Victoria knelt down in front of him. I did, but I also walked away. Because I realized winning and coming back to you are the same thing. Noah hugged her, actually threw his arms around her neck and held on tight. Can we go to Ethan's house now? He asked when he finally let go. Yes, Victoria said. We absolutely can. They showed up at Ethan's house just after noon. Mia answered the door, took one look at Victoria's face, and announced, You look like you need cookies. I really do, Victoria agreed. They spent the afternoon in Ethan's backyard. The children played while Victoria and Ethan sat on the back steps, coffee cups warming their hands. You did it, Ethan said. I did, and then I walked away. How does it feel? Victoria thought about the question. Scary, liberating, right. She paused. I spent 7 years believing the company was my purpose. Turns out it was just my distraction. From what? From the actual work of being human, of being present, of loving people instead of managing them. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, What are you going to do now? Honestly, I have no idea. For the first time in my adult life, I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't have a strategy. I just have today. And what does today look like? Victoria watched Noah and Mia building something elaborate with sticks and leaves. Today looks like this. Tomorrow I'll figure out tomorrow. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the children play, and Victoria felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of challenge, but the presence of purpose. Not perfect control, but honest presence. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out and saw dozens of notifications. News articles about her board victory, interview requests, job offers from competitors. She turned the phone off and set it aside. You know what I've realized? She said to Ethan. I spent years accumulating power because I thought it would make me safe. But the only thing that actually makes me feel safe is this, being here, being known, being enough exactly as I am. That's terrifying, Ethan said. It is. But it's also true. As the afternoon faded into evening, as the children's laughter filled the air, as the sun painted everything golden, Victoria felt the last piece of her old life fall away. She'd lost an empire, but she'd found herself, and she'd found her son. And sitting on those back steps with paint-stained clothes and cold coffee and no plan for tomorrow, she felt richer than she'd ever felt in the corner office with her name on the building. 3 months later, Victoria stood in a small commercial kitchen in Brooklyn, hands covered in flour, teaching a group of single parents how to make budget-friendly meals with their kids. It was her new project, a nonprofit focused on helping parents prioritize presence over perfection. The pay was minimal. The impact was immeasurable. Noah sat at a table in the corner with Mia, both of them coloring while their parents learned to cook. They'd become inseparable, these two children who'd found each other across a restaurant and changed everything. Ethan helped with the classes sometimes, offering his perspective as someone who'd walked away from a high-powered career.
Other times, he consulted on medical cases from home, finding balance between his expertise and his presence. And Victoria, she'd sold her shares in Kane Industries for enough money to never work again if she chose. Instead, she chose this: messy kitchens and grateful parents and work that mattered in ways spreadsheets never had. She still had hard days, still woke up sometimes with the urge to check the stock market, to call old colleagues, to reclaim the power she'd walked away from. But then Noah would appear at breakfast with a question about dinosaurs, or a request to make pancakes together, and she'd remember what she'd actually won. Not a company, a life. Not power, presence. Not everything, but enough. And as she watched her son laugh with his best friend, as she helped a struggling parent master a simple recipe, as she lived in the actual present instead of optimizing the future, Victoria Kane finally understood what success really meant. It meant showing up. It meant being known. It meant choosing love over legacy. And it meant recognizing that the empire she'd really been building all along wasn't made of steel and glass. It was made of moments like these. Small, imperfect, and absolutely priceless.